Come in with this Fox News alert. Authorities in Northern California now are investigating.
Northern California. What are they talking about? Northern California case is proving to be mystery. Globally spread. Where are they at? Sacramento. That's not but about an hour's drive from my niece. Wow.
Now are investigating the first U.S. case of coronavirus with no known origin. This is a woman working as a tour bus guide in Japan, tested positive for the virus for a second time after having suffered from it previously and recovered. I want to bring in now Dr. Mark Siegel, who is outside for a second day.
Let's back this up real quick. Let's look at this thing. I guess that's probably a real image of it. I don't know. I wish we could get a closer up. This thing has basically created a life of its own. Especially if they're saying that it just materializes in spots where there's really no known origin of where it come from. So it's very possible that this thing could actually be, wow, look at this. 365. That's a pretty big, pretty bad loss. This thing could actually be exploding into a wide world epidemic if it's doing what they're saying that it's doing. I pray to God that it don't. But something like this right here, I wish we could see the interior of it to actually see the zigzags, the little, I call them the, kind of like that right there, to be able to actually see the hairs on each strand. And I'm sure the doctors can see it. We just hadn't got images of it right now. But I would like to see it. Somebody has to find the host. And if they can find the host to this thing, going back over to China, of it going supposedly back to, I guess it come from fish, maybe octopus eating raw fish or something. I don't know where it originally come from. Some say it come from that, and others want to say that it come from a containment center. I don't know, but this thing is taking on a life of its own, which is kind of frightful. No, it ain't kind of frightful. It is frightful. Listen to this.
Time after having suffered from it previously and recovered. I want to bring in now Dr. Mark Siegel, who is outside for a second day, the biocontainment facility at the University of Nebraska Medical Center, where Americans, doctor, with the virus are in quarantine. So first I want to start with how everyone at the center is doing where you are.
Hi, Harris. The National Quarantine Center is quite impressive. And actually, they had 2 people in the biocontainment unit, which is where they go when they're really sick. One of them was released last night, and the other one's due to come out probably today. The one that was released had a pneumonia, a severe pneumonia, which is characteristic of this virus. He was put on an experimental drug, or at least he was in the trial, and he's gotten better, and he has underlying conditions. So that the response here. Yeah, the response here illustrates that people can recover, are certainly recovering.
So what significance is it that someone has an unknown source of this coronavirus? Because it could be that they just haven't finished investigating yet. We don't want to alarm people that this has gone communal, but you mentioned this yesterday.
Actually, Harris, you were ahead of this story yesterday. You were really on top of this, and I'm glad you brought it up yesterday and today, because the concern is if you can't trace this to a traveler, and it may be, as you just said, that there is a traveler that spread it to this person. If you can't confirm that, Right, and if you can't confirm that, then you wonder if it's starting to spread within the community, which is what happened in South Korea, it's what happened in Italy, and happened in Japan, but we're not there yet. We are concerned about it. There is a lot of concern among the health authorities, the CDC. If it keeps spreading in industrialized countries with good healthcare systems, we think it's only a matter of time before it starts to spread here. As far as we know, it hasn't happened yet.
One more quick one from me, and then Melissa will take over. So this patient in California, there are reports that there was some sort of testing delay of this coronavirus patient. What do you know about that? And are the federal guidelines or protocols complicated at all for who gets a test and who doesn't?
I'm deeply concerned about this point. It's because the Centers for Disease Control has a test kit of reagents, one of which is faulty. So they sent it out to over 100 centers, and then they had to pull it back for most of them. So you still have to send your sample to the CDC, which is a delay. Now they're working on a new blood test, which when it's available, I want it in my hospital. I want it available widely to all the major medical centers in the country. That's what we need. We need to be able to do it as part of a panel we're doing. We're not there.
Dr. Siegel, it's Melissa Francis. Can I ask you about this case now we're hearing about in Japan, where the person recovered and then tested positive again?
Yeah, Melissa, that's very interesting, too. Let me tell you how that is. That's actually less alarming because a lot of respiratory viruses, you have a surge, you get sick, you think you're recovered, and then you get sick again. And you can have a situation where you test positive, then test negative, then test positive again. I don't believe that that means that the patient was cured, Melissa, and then they suddenly got the virus a second time. Chances are, once you have this virus and you get over it, you're immune. That's most likely the case. I just think that you have ups and downs and valleys and troughs in terms of how you hit the virus. So we're going to see more and more of that. We see it with the flu. We see it with the flu.
Real quick, so what would happen if people are diagnosed, say, in New York City, in a city? What would happen? Are you quarantining at home? Are you going to the hospital? Because I heard somebody say in the last hour, it's not like our hospitals would be overwhelmed because we wouldn't be sending people there. Is that true?
Depends on the cases. If you're home alone with no one else there, they can quarantine you alone. Otherwise, major medical centers, and there in New York, Bellevue is very well trained in this, have ability to quarantine patients, and they're getting instructions from the quarantine center here at Nebraska Medicine. But here's what it means. It means people going in with masks, with shields, with gowns, and with gloves, all of which are disposable, all of which are pulled off by another team member, because you're wondering how do you not spread the virus once you've been in the room, right? You have to have a buddy that actually gets rid of the stuff for you so you don't spread it. This kind of training is going on at major medical centers around the country for people that can't be quarantined at home.
Dr. Siegel, it's Kennedy. I have a quick question. Obviously, you don't know if you have the virus unless you've been tested. And there have been some issues getting tests, particularly for that patient in Northern California who had to wait several days. Is the CDC, are they coming up with a better system for getting those tests out to people who might be infected?
Kennedy, two things. First of all, the CDC claims they're ramping up testing and that they're going to have that second, more user-friendly test available soon. In the meantime, I want to tell you that you can distinguish this test. You can distinguish this virus if you're a clinician as follows. I talked to the people here and they confirmed the patients have cough, shortness of breath, and fever. That's different than the flu. With the flu, you have fatigue and muscle aches. Cough, shortness of breath, and fever. And on x-ray, we worry about this characteristic pneumonia that's classic for the coronavirus that we're seeing in about 15% of cases.
All right, Doctor, you mentioned those.
We need the test kits.
Well, and you mentioned how the medical professionals are protecting themselves. We've seen medical professionals in China at the heart of this whole thing pass away. So we owe such a debt of gratitude for those people who hang in there and take care of us when we get sick.
Absolutely.
Like yourself, Dr. Siegel. Thank you.
Absolutely.
The Trump campaign is suing the New York Times for libel. Do they have a case? We'll debate it.
Attention veterans.
There's so many unknowns about this virus. And that's one of the scary parts, is that it's come onto the scene with so much aggressiveness, so much force. And I think it's literally has frightened your experts to the point that they really don't know what to expect out of this living entity that is now causing havoc in so many people's lives. In other words, they're going by the old standards, which is hope for the best, but at the same time expect the worst, because they really don't know what the worst is going to be. And I guess what's adding drama to all of this, first of all, it was China that had it first. Secondly, we know that China has never been what you would consider a upfront, honest, per se, country or nation, with them being a communist-controlled country over there. And I think what's adding just as much drama to all this is the fact that we have all this technology now pertaining to social intermedia and people spreading their own opinions, including myself. You know, I'm one of the ones too that are out there towards talking about it. And regardless whether I'm talking about this or I'm talking about whatever, that's part of our amendment rights towards being able to discuss and talk about things. I personally don't want to flavor it up to the point that it's just totally doom and gloom for the planet at this point in time. And I don't think nobody does, really, unless they're just trying to bring fear-mongering into people's lives. But I try to tone it down to the point that, hey, you know, this is to be looked upon in a cautious, serious manner, but at the same time, let's not over-exacerbate the problem to the point that we wind up injuring ourselves off of the fear factor, similar towards what went on during the run of money that happened in 1929 that caused the Great Depression. That's exactly what happened in 1929. When everybody wanted to run to the banks and grab out every dime that they had, because they was afraid that the banks was going to fail. It was a very common practice during that time that people had Civil War money and hid it under their beds or in their beds or under their houses. They would put it in fruit jars. They would hide it because they did not trust the system. And anytime you have a system that is untrustworthy, you're going to have panic. Just like right now with Wall Street having the jitters. I seen it a while ago up in the 400 range. And then it went back down into the 200 range. So it's floating back and forth, up and down, but it's still pulling a negative. A little bit stronger negative than what it was yesterday, but it's still pulling a negative in that area. Let's see what else we can tap in on real quick other than Northern California.
Guys.
The sense that, you know, I don't feel the need to put it up myself if someone else is constantly doing it for me.
Right.
You know, but I just feel life, you can either look at something or you can shoot it. You can't do both. One of the drawbacks, I mean, it's...
Adventure sales event is happening now.
Every time it takes care of something for us, we celebrate.
See right there? It was pulling, what was it, 250, 252? To down 252, 250? Like I said, I've seen it in the negative. As high today is in the 400 range. And what time is it right now? It's still morning. Well, barely. It's 10 minutes till 12 where I'm at. not Eastern Standard, but Mid Standard Time. So the market still has 4 hours to play with. I think it's 4 hours, maybe 5 hours to play with before it shuts down today. So it could go just as easily one way as it does the other, but it is pulling as of right now in the morning hours in the negative. You know, I don't base nothing concrete off of man-made ideals pertaining to something that is so vulnerable as the market, that people can use whatever excuse that they want to use whenever it comes to basically a rich, quick scheme, and that's basically all the markets are. It's a get rich quick scheme, and the professionals that are playing the market, they know when to pull out and they know when to go in. That's their game. It's actually more secure than gambling, because 99% of the time whenever you go to a gambling casino, you're going to lose. You will lose, because that's the way that it's set up. There's only 1% out of the 100% that every now and then will have a decent winning or a big winning. There'll be little trivial winnings here and there that'll keep the low ballers playing, pertaining to the quarter slots and the dollar slots and stuff like that. But the big players that really put down the serious money, there's only 1% out of the 99 that win. So whenever you walk into a casino, you basically know that unless you're just a slim 1 in a billion chance, you're not going to win nothing. You're not going to win nothing. What is going on here with the stock market has turned into more of a secure investment rather than going into a gambling casino. And this is the part that I have heard various politicians kick up about, of how that it has turned into a honey hole. Nothing more than a honey hole for these professional card sharks. I'm going to call them professional card sharks, that can go in with the investment of $10,000 and walk away with the proceedings and the gains of $2 million. If you know how to play the market, if you know the yays and the nays and the do's and the don'ts. Because you got people that read this stuff that you're looking at right here. Whenever you're looking at all these zigzags, you look at the top market and you look at the bottom market at the same time. And they have memorized all this stuff. They're professionals at it. They know what this one represents. They know what that one represents. They know what this one represents. All right. They have memorized all this stuff in their minds. That's the reason why they're professional players. I dealt with one of them while I was in jail that showed me a little bit about the pros. And it's basically the same way with a horse track. You know, if you go to a horse track long enough, you're going to know not only the rider, but you're going to know the horse. Same way with a dog track. You're going to know what dog is pulling to the right, what dog is got a limp, what dog has a tendency of juicing up right towards the finish line. You're going to know if that dog has the potential towards winning, because you've studied that dog. You've looked at that dog. You've looked at the horse. You know which one it has the potential towards being a winner. Well, so do these people that study these numbers right here. They know exactly what they're looking at. They know what's going to be more favorable, what's going to be more demanding, what's in the what's in the analogy towards a quick win? These are professional card sharks as far as I'm concerned. These are the people that know how to play the market. And they'll use every type of excuse to walk into the market, just like walking out of the market. These people know this, all right? They have studied it. They're part of this system. Once you become part of this system, it's a get-rich scheme. It's a pyramid scheme. And how come various politicians, I guess it's because everybody is involved in this get-rich scheme, to the point that that's the reason why they don't outlaw it or put higher or bigger restrictions on how it's played, is because there's too many people that's making too much money off of it. That's one reason why that Donald Trump refuses to buck the system pertaining to the oil markets right now and the natural gas markets right now, simply because there's too much money still left on the table in the oil industry, in the oil market. Now, once things become more appealing pertaining to solar panels, hybrid energy, pertaining to batteries, and other types of innovative energies, once Donald Trump sees that that's going to be just as much of a profit as oil, then he'll start steering away from the oil and start steering more towards alternative fuels pertaining to hybrid, battery, solar, etc. So he's sticking to what he believes or what he knows or what he believes that he knows towards a get-rich-quick scheme, playing the market. Let's stick with what we know best, because we don't know about all these other ideals because they haven't taken off yet. Even though we can see the results pertaining to global warming. Let's back this up real quick. I just want to make a point real quick on this. You see those bed mites? Those are real creatures. All right? They get in your sheets. They get on your body. And they chew and gnaw dead skin. And they live off dead skin. All right? This is considered a parasite. Or a type of parasite. We live among parasites every day. In our sheets, in our clothes, in our carpet, in our everyday life. It's part of the food chain. They're living off of our waste, basically. Whenever you have a society that is living off of the very bloodline that keeps this planet alive and keeps this planet functioning on a level keel. On a level keel. All right? When you start draining the nutrients out of the ground, regardless whether it's crude oil or gas, to the point that now it becomes unbalanced. You have an unbalanced eco, because the oil was put there to help reduce friction, heat friction, of all the rocks and all the other things that's rubbing together and grinding, and oceans constantly shifting and moving and going in and out and getting closer to the moon and getting away from the moon and getting over on this side of the atmosphere and then that side of the atmosphere. We're constantly in motion. Whenever you have a society that is steadily depleting the natural resources out of the ground, then is whenever you have Mother Nature that starts erupting the way that Mother Nature has been erupting for the past few years, and it's only intensifying. It ain't going the opposite direction. It's only getting worse towards what we're doing to the planet pertaining to seeing all these natural catastrophes. Then if you'll put into the equation pertaining to our filthiness that causes these little critters to multiply. You know, I just got through talking to a woman yesterday that went to Hawaii for a week. She said it was a lifetime adventure that she'd been planning. I think it cost her something like $5,000 to do this, be gone for like 10 days. The vegetation over there is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. There is no snakes because they keep snakes away from over there. But it's full of bugs. It's full of all kinds of insects. It's full of those things. And you know why? Because they're in a breeding environment. They're basically in a hatchery to where these things right here never die out. They never get freeze. They never get frost. They multiply more. So whenever you go over there, you better take a couple good cans of bug spray to spray on your body and to spray in your sheets and to spray on everything that you do, because there is an infestation of bugs over on the islands. That's exactly what we're doing right now. As the planet is warming up from the inside out as well as the outside in, we're creating an atmosphere that is very, very pleasant for these little guys to live. And once more, whenever you have a president that's not willing to look at the reality of what we're doing to the planet, on top of the sound doctrine that is taught because of the sorrows of sin, you have a recipe of a catastrophe, because you don't have a president that's willing to research and look at the facts pertaining to what is going on right now. If Donald Trump had any ideal toward what was going to be occurring in the generation behind him because of what we're doing to the world right now, not just on account of bugs, not just on account of insects, just on account of parasites, but if he had any ideal that these major category 4, category 5 hurricanes are just going to multiply, and instead of us getting hit every 500 years or every 100 years or every 20 years, now we're having sometimes 2 or 3 of them that form, and possibly in the next 5 years from now, there'll possibly be, we'll go from 2 to 3 to 3 to 4 to 4 to 5 because of the water increasing. Donald Trump don't understand the difference between the weather and the atmosphere. You know, some lunatic a few years ago walks into the Capitol building because it had snowed, and they had a big snowball and they throwed it at somebody. They said, "This is what we think of global warming." Well, that tells you how ignorant that people are in not understanding the difference between weather and atmosphere. Especially whenever you have data that proves that the atmosphere is warming up. Not just from the outside, but now we have proof that the atmosphere is warming from the inside, pertaining to our oceans warming up. More ice that is melting. We are turning this planet into an uninhabitable resource for human life to sustain if we continue on this path that we are on. And I don't know if the germs is going to take us over. I don't know if the parasites is going to take us over, or the natural catastrophes pertaining to Mother Nature is going to take us over. I don't know which, but it's pretty obvious that we are on a downcline right now towards the Mother Nature, God Almighty, smiling on us and continually blessing us, because we're seeing a manifestation of all these critters that are intensifying on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour level. I have noticed that since I've come back here. In the summertime, I got to use more sprays to keep things down pertaining to fleas, bugs, being infestated with bed bugs and gnats and different parasites. I've noticed that right here since I've come back here in 2014. And it's only going to increase. Kind of like years ago, we didn't ever see no armadillos over in this part of the neck of the woods. Today, it's nothing uncommon for you to see armadillos. We see armadillos in the summertime everywhere. You run over them in vehicles. And if you don't watch, they'll gouge your tire. See armadillos everywhere. Why are the armadillos inundating our area here? Because the weather is warming up. And now it's becoming an atmosphere for armadillos to live in this area. Donald Trump don't understand these things. He's never sat down and had nobody explain these things to him. Or he's in a shadow of doubt of old school towards not wanting to evolve. I don't know if he's not wanting to evolve because he just don't comprehend it. I don't know if he's not wanting to evolve because of the money situation, towards sticking to that in which what he knows. But somebody like Donald Trump can be very dangerous to society, especially in constant denial. I realize, pertaining to the coronavirus, you have to walk a certain balance. It's a balancing act. You don't want to be too overzealous towards mashing the panic button, but at the same time, you want to put the word out there on a cautious scale to where everybody is aware that the germ problem this year has obviously intensified pertaining to the virus, which you have to ask the simple question, which is, next year, is it even going to be worse? Is there going to be something else because of the global warming? Once more, we're creating a world that's an incubator for these things. Nothing but an incubator. Because our ice is melting. Our planet is warming up. And I don't care how many Donald Trumps that you got out there that's in doubt or in denial about this. The fact of the matter is, the facts, the proof is in the pudding. The facts speak for themselves. And I don't know if you've ever been bit by one of these little freaking creatures or not, but they hurt. Those little things right there open up. They open up and they'll pinch the you know what out of you if you got any of them in your bed. Kind of like a mosquito. Actually, a mosquito just takes one of these prongs and sticks into you and draws blood out of you. These things right here actually eat the skin plumb off your body. If they can't find enough dead flesh in your covers or on your bed, they'll attack you. Because that's what they are. They're like a catfish. They collect things from the bottom. And the warmer the planet becomes, the more we're going to have to deal with stuff like this. And the more we deal with stuff like this, the more we're going to have to deal with microscopic, biological coronaviruses or diseases that's going to spread throughout the planet. And that's the very thing that Jesus talked about. We would not be dealing with what we're dealing with right now if things would have been properly handled in 1988 going 30 plus years ago, we would be living in a life right now of peace and prosperity. And we would have had already done caught all these other factors that now we're just now becoming aware of. It's a heartbreak. And I hate it that these scientists are just now climbing on board towards understanding all these things. But most importantly, I hate it that we still have a chief and commander that isn't even aware of the statistics of how many people die here in America pertaining to flu, or heart attacks, or wrecks, or cancer, or other types of problems that we're experiencing, shootings, etc. The data's out there, which just proves that Donald Trump hasn't looked at the data. He isn't aware of the data. He don't know about the data. But yet now he speaks up like he's a professional in these areas. We hire these people to be professionals. This is their jobs, so that they can alert us and tell us ahead of time what's happening and what's going on and what we need to do, how we need to prepare. That's why we put these people in the positions that we put them in. We just don't put them in there so that they can showboat. We put them in there so that they can get things done for the will of the people, for the benefit of the people. And when they start failing in these areas, people need to let them know that. Once more, good luck to all of us. I don't know what's going on in Northern California within an hour's drive of Lodi, California, where my niece lives up in Sacramento. But it's pretty obvious it must be something that's pretty urgent, that it has raised a red flag and somebody just out of the blue getting sick, and they really don't have the point of origin of where the sickness come from. That in and of itself is alarming. That is the point that I'm trying to make on this particular episode that I'm putting out to the general public. Welcome to the 21st century.